Hi there, welcome back to my shop. Usually when I turn something, I like to know what the wood is that I'm turning. In this case, I don't know. I didn't identify it in any way when I brought it into the shop, and it's been sitting here for a few years. Maybe you can help identify it either by the bark or by the grain. Anyway, this piece is 11.5 inches long, 10 inches in diameter, and it's missing a lot of bark. I would love to have turned this to a natural edge bowl with the bark on it, but that's missing. There's a huge hole right here in the middle, a big piece missing here, chainsaw cuts, so that's probably not going to happen. But I'm going to take this over to the lathe and see what I can do with it. I'm going to drill a 5/16 inch hole at a nominal center. I'll use a larger bit to create a flat spot for the jaws of my chuck to sit on. While I go get that done, why don't you sit down and relax, or maybe you won't have time because we're going to go over to the lathe right away. I am going to start turning this with my 3/4 inch bowl gouge. I am going to be turning as much air, in fact more air than wood. So I want this to be as solid a gouge as I have, so hopefully it won't bounce too much on this tool rest. Now I'm going to be turning at 540 RPM. I tried it as low as 200 RPM and it shook just as badly as it does here, and it shakes badly here. I'll show you. So until I get this balanced out a lot, this could be entertaining. I could either hurt this lathe or I could hurt myself. We'll see what happens. I'll just get my face shield on and do some turning. Well, that was interesting. Now, apparently, the woodworm screw did not want to hold. I'm kind of hoping it didn't take that other camera out totally. Well, that made for an interesting 0.02 seconds. Oh, man, that came off of there in a hurry. And it's not going back on a woodworm screw, I'm sure you can tell. I want to use a 4-inch faceplate on here. And I do not have a 4-inch Forstner bit to flatten this out. I'm also not willing to spend $60 on a bit just to use it once. So I'm going to use my 3 3/4 inch bit, and then I'll use a chisel just to take the rest out around it until this sits on there flat. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll be back. Well, I am real glad I am using GoPro cameras to shoot this. because I don't think this camera right above here would have survived if it was much of anything else. When this piece of log came flying off there and hit that camera, I think I'm very lucky to still be using it. Now, not for a second do I believe that I have this faceplate centered exactly over where that woodworm screw was, but I think it's pretty darn close. And we'll find out now when I start doing a little turning. I'm going to be turning at the same speed, using the same gouge, which I've just honed up a little bit, and see what happens here. And I have not watched the video yet of what happened when it came off of here, so I'm not really sure if I got a catch. I didn't feel like I did. Maybe this wood over here is just a little bit punky. It seemed solid, but let's see what happens. I've got 8 number 8 by 1 3/4 inch screws in there, so I'm hoping they're going to hold. All right, I'll be using my live center, which I should have done in the first place. So here's another chance for you to learn from my mistakes and not make your own. Lucky for you, I make a lot of mistakes that you can learn from. So, turning at 540 RPM, 3/4 inch bowl gouge. My gouge was not sliding very smoothly across the tool rest, and I noticed there were quite a number of nicks on here, so I filed those down with a flat file, and then I waxed it real well. Now let's just see if it can't do a better job. Some of these shavings, splinters, whatever you want to call them, are coming off of there real sharp and hot. So I thought it was time to put on this ugly old work glove and protect my hand a little bit. Boy, is it ever time to sharpen or hone this. Time to flatten this off on the bottom a little and see what I have to work with. I've raised the speed to 600 using a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. Certainly looking like a softwood to me. Pine, fir, spruce, I don't know what this is. I have not quite decided what I want to do for a shape here, although I'm thinking I may want to come in from the edge deeper in here, and I need to do that to get rid of this and this. But to do that, this bark has broken away, so I want to use some Starbond medium CA glue, put it in there, glue this back in place, and then I can turn it down here without tearing the bark away some more. This is the kind of thing that happens to me because I never plan ahead till I see something start to take shape. And I think I am liking this. So I'm going to put glue in there, glue it in place, and then I'll be back. As I'm going along here, this is starting to resemble a Grecian urn a bit. Shear scraping with a negative rake scraper, which is a skew chisel. All right, time to take this off, clean this up a little bit, and then I can form the tenon I want to actually use. I want a 1 5/8 inch tenon for my chuck jaws. So I have set these dividers to half of that, which is 13/16. Now I will scribe the line for that tenon, 500 RPM. Now that I've taken a look at this for a second, does anybody else think that that's just too small for a tenon on a piece this size? I think so. So I'm going to use my larger jaws. I need a 3-inch tenon, so I've set this to 1.5 inches. And now I will scribe another line. And I think that will be much more like it. This is going to make for a fairly narrow foot in here, but I don't think that's a problem at all. I'm going to sand this now. I'm going to power sand it with my 2-inch discs on my drill. This will be going in reverse, so the dust is heading right into the dust port here for my dust collector, and this will be spinning forward. I'll just get my air shield on to protect my lungs, and I'll be back to start this. I'll show you a little bit of the sanding I'm going to do. I'm going to put sanding sealer on here now. I'm using Zinsser Seal Coat. Put a thin coat on here. I'll put 2 of them on. And I'm sure you've noticed I got some pretty good sized cracks in here. I'm leaving them. I like the looks of them. Mother Nature put them there. I'm not going to argue with Mother Nature too much. She can be just cruel if she's mad at you. If you saw my last very short video, this is the Zinsser Seal Coat that I had so much trouble with leaking from the can. Well, now it's in plastic containers for the time being. And I'm thinking of getting some of those stop-loss bags to keep it from curing in there. I've had this around a long time, but it still seems to work just fine. So I'll put these coats on, and then I will bring you back. I am going to use Minwax Wipe-On Poly Clear Gloss. I'll be using paper towel to put this on, and I'll be turning this at 100 RPM. Alright, I'll do 3 or 4 coats of this, and then I'll be back. Alright, I have finished this with the Minwax Wipe-On Poly. I think it looks just gorgeous. There's one spot here that's rough, but I'm hoping that Axe abrasive paste will take care of that. I'm just applying it, and I'll rub it in a little bit. Starting at just 500 RPM, hopefully until I can feel it breaking up and becoming very smooth. (750 RPM) clean cloth. Well, Tom Ackley says that once it stops coming off on your cloth, and it's not coming off anymore on this pot, that it's finished, that it's done its job. So now I will go on to Axe Polish Restoring Paste. Alright, I'll buff this in, starting at 750 RPM, and this is still off balance enough that I can't get much faster than that. Oh, that is looking so nice. There is some paste that has embedded itself in these cracks and in this crack. I'm just going to use compressed air to try to blow that out of there. Now another buffing with the cloth. That's better. This is looking good. Alright, it's time to reverse it, put it into the chuck jaws, and see what I can do about turning the top of this piece. Now I'm going to put these jaws on that tenon. It should be good to go. Near as I can tell, it's running true. I'll take it off this adapter and reverse it and take off that faceplate. From the bottom of the foot to the highest point, I've got 8 1/4 inches. Now, to do the tenon, I went in here 1/4 inch. So that leaves from that spot to here 8 inches. I want to leave a 1/2 inch thick bottom. I don't want this too thin. So I need to go down 7 1/2 inches. And I'm going to start this by using a series of slowly larger bits. Use Forstner bits to drill in here that 7 1/2 inches. And I'll be right back to start that. I'm going to start with a 2-inch Forstner bit. I have an extension on it. And I'm going to be running this quite slowly, 200 RPM. Because there was no center for the point on the Forstner bit to hit, it's having a real hard time being centered, especially with this extension on it. So I'm going to take the extension off and give it another try. At 200 RPM again, with that not sticking out quite so far because of the extension, let's see what happens here, whether it will find its center. I'll need to constantly make sure I get the chips that are there so nothing's binding. Alright, now I'll put that extension on and be right back. Looks like we're in there about 3.5 inches. Alright, got my 7.5 inches to right there. Time to change to a slightly larger bit. I'm missing a good sized piece of bark there, and I have looked all over for it but can't find it, so I guess it's just going to have to be part of the character of this piece. Now what I want to do is put just a little bit of thin CA glue all over the bark. There are some pieces that are very loose. I want to make sure they don't come off. There's one right there. It also darkens it, and I kind of like that. So I will be back after I get this finished. There are a couple of real rough areas here and here. I want to take this down just a little more, try to straighten that out. Alright, that's better. And with the amount of vibration going on, I'm going to double check that this tenon is good and tight. Or rather that the chuck is very tightly holding the tenon. Seems good. Alright, I used these large calipers of mine. And I'm anywhere from about 1/2 inch or just under to 2.5 inches there. So this is going to take me a long time. I don't expect you to want to even watch it. So I will be back when I get more of this finished. All right, I have this fairly long piece in here. I've turned this as a cylinder to 3 3/4 inch, so it will fit into the bottom of this vessel. And I will just put this on here, bring my live center up to it, tighten this up here, and let's see if it's going to run true. And it is. All right, I will get my turning smock on, and then I will be able to turn away this tenon. All right, I will start turning with my bowl gouge and turn away this tenon. I'm using the same technique that I'm sure many of us have learned from Phil Anderson or Gary, the Papa 1947. Well, let's see if I can do nearly as good a job as they do. All right, before I go any further, I'm going to sand this area so it's finished, and then I'll come back. I decided to finish this while it was on here because it's certainly much easier to sand and put on the wipe-on poly while it's spinning than to do it afterwards. Now, if I can just take this off without wrecking all of this. All right, I'm glad this vessel didn't come flying off of there. All right, I hope I have a good enough center mark here that I can drill this for the logo coin.